Excellent. Welcome to Build. Excellent. Welcome to this session. This is going to be a session called What's New in Infrastructure as a Service for Developers. I'm going to start presenting, and then we're going to actually bring on a special guest, a very distinguished guest. Jeffrey Snover will be joining me. He's a distinguished engineer, and he has such a good title that I'm not even going to tell you my title. So, my name is Corey Sanders. I am responsible for Infrastructure as a Service in the Microsoft Azure team. What we're covering today. So first off, of course, make fun of the template picture. So that happened. I will then move on and talk a little bit about infrastructure service and developers, give you a little bit of the overview. I'll spend some time on Visual Studio showing you more than actually what you saw today this morning. Then I'll talk some time about extensions and configuration and bring up Jeffrey at that point. And then VM images and gallery and some closing. OK. So just to give you kind of the overview, infrastructure as a service and developers, there's a few key things that we think are really great to enable the power of infrastructure as a service for your development needs. Obviously, the Visual Studio integration, and you saw a little bit of this morning. I'll spend a little bit more time of it here during the session. This is great. It's going to make it really easy to use the tools that you know and love and be able to deploy and manage virtual machines in Microsoft Azure. Obviously, different OSs, right? Windows is fantastic, and hopefully you're doing a lot of development on Windows, but hopefully you're also doing development on Linux, or maybe not. OK, maybe just OK. You can do development on Linux, and in Microsoft Azure, both are fully supported and very easy to use, which makes it really, really great to create this open and community-based solution that we've got. Data as well, right? We have the SQL Server solution, but we also have pre-built Oracle images that allow you to deploy whatever Oracle DB or Java solution that you may want in Microsoft Azure. There are no limits there. There's no blockout. And then, of course, just the integration with Platform as a Service. So you may be using Infrastructure as a Service, but you may also want to dip into Platform as a Service and use a combination of all these solutions. And so obviously over there in Platform as a Service, the extensive support for multiple languages, .NET, PHP, Java, Python, Node.js, et cetera. Support for different CMS solutions on our websites. Support for different device solutions on mobile. And of course, support for a whole bunch of database as a service solutions across both SQL, Mongo, and ClearDB. And so the goal is to give you options. And this is where infrastructure as a service, I think, plays out really strong. It gives you the option to do what you want to do. And we'll be spending a lot of time today talking about that. It's better integration, and it's just really good usability. On top of that, operational needs. So the ability to sort of deploy, manage, and configure your virtual machines using whatever tooling you love or whatever tooling you may not yet have discovered, right? And part of the goal here today is we'll walk you through some of the tooling and show you some of the capabilities that we've got. Obviously, you saw quite a bit from Puppet this morning, and we'll talk a little bit about Chef, and we'll talk about PowerShell DSC as well. So the ability to configure and manage virtual machines in any way that you want. Using the identity solutions. This allows you to control and lock down your virtual machines either just to your person or to your organization, depending on how you're doing your development. And so crossing this identity solution across all your assets will be really, really valuable. Of course, operational features as well, the built-in monitoring and autoscale. So autoscale went general availability today. And so you can actually do autoscaling of infrastructure as a service using the portal today. And it allows you to manage and grow as needed. And so the capabilities across both monitoring and autoscale are going to be very valuable, coupled with, of course, the other solutions mentioned earlier. So more options, easy to use, and very simple to scale. And so the last point is one we should not forget, is lowest price, highest value options. And so with the MSDN offer that we have today, you do have gigantic savings. And so this is something that if you are an MSDN user, you should absolutely go investigate this. You should take advantage of this. The ability to deploy virtual machines with 33% savings on Windows and upwards of 97% savings on SQL Server and BizTalk. That's not mistyped. That is actually what that value looks like, is just fantastic. It makes it very easy to go play around with this for your development and testing needs. Of course, we also have a huge amount of special images. So for MSDN users, you do have a pre-built Visual Studio image. So this allows you to do your dev test directly in the cloud using that pre-built image, and it allows you to pay for those really reduced prices I just talked about. Dynamics Nav and Dynamics GP also have pre-built images if you're a Dynamics guy or girl or gal. And then, of course, we do have the full VM Depot solution. And these are pre-built images by the community. I'm not going to spend too much time on them today, but you should take a look. There's a huge range of options here across Django, Discourse, Joomla, Drupal, GitLab, et cetera, tons of images for you to go use and play with. And so those special images, those are actually available whether you're MSDN or not. Visual Studio and the Dynamics images are only available to MSDN users to be able to deploy in the gallery from those. And then the last point here, which is something we announced actually earlier this week, the basic VM sizes for dev, test, and prod. We do believe this is the best value for both Windows and Linux deployments. And so if you're doing sort of the single instance, they do have, you can add BYO in front of anything, if you didn't know. So they do have bring your own load balancer, and they also have bring your own autoscale. And so you end up having to bring those along with you for this reduced price. But if you run the numbers of what we've announced, you can actually run this virtual machine, this basic virtual machine, if you're running, let's say, 8x5, for an entire year for $91.50. So that is pretty cool. It's amazing. And so it's so cool that I put a picture of myself from college. And so that's the thumbs up here. I didn't know what a picture to put. For that MSDN offer, just to kind of outline the options here, premium MSDN offer gives you $100 of usage for dev test on Microsoft Azure. So that's a few things, actually. And with the basic sizes, it actually means you can run 3 virtual machines 24 hours a day. You can run 50 HD Insight nodes for 10 hours, up to 100 websites, and 80 virtual machines for 20 hours load. So these are some of your examples of, and this is all just a part of your MSDN offer. So please go in, activate, use it. It's there for you. It really is a great deal. You're throwing it away if you're not. So, OK, that's the overview. Let's dig into some of the more interesting details here. So what are we covering today? Visual Studio and Infrastructure as a Service. Let me start there. So you saw this morning, Visual Studio and Infrastructure as a Service have come together for really a nice experience and a joint experience. The first thing that we'll sort of walk through, you can create a virtual machine directly through Server Explorer. This is really powerful. It means you don't have to leave the IDE. You don't have to go muck around with any other experience. You're there, you deploy it, and you can use it immediately. And so that experience, you can publish directly to it. So when you deploy a virtual machine through Visual Studio actually, by default, puts web deploy content down. So using the extension model that I'll talk about later, it immediately puts down a web deploy tooling, so you can start deploying your web applications straight away. You may ask yourself, well, great, but what about websites? It's a great question. I think the key difference of why you'd perhaps use a virtual machine here versus a website here is if you've got additional solutions that you want to install right nearby, if you want to put a SQL server on the same box, but you want to use web deploy to do fast iteration on top of that SQL server, it gives you really a great solution to be able to do that. You deploy SQL Server, do your web deploy on top of it, and you've got this single box to do all your dev tests, probably under an MSDN solution. And so that makes it really easy with that web deploy option. And so using web deploy, you can directly deploy your website right in with that extension. But then you can also, as Mark showed this morning, directly remote debug. And you can remote debug your IaaS solution, or you can remote debug your Windows solution as well. And so if you ended up needing to do both, and he showed Windows this morning, I'll show you IaaS right now. And so this is the demo that we'll walk you through immediately. OK. So here I've got Visual Studio up, and I've got a fun application that I've built. And so first thing I want to do is I kind of want to just go and publish this application. See here. Oops. OK. So what I've done here is I've actually already created a virtual machine that I'm going to use for this. But let's say I wanted to create a fresh one. So what you saw this morning was through Server Explorer, you can go in and create a virtual machine and walk through all those options. You can also just say New Project and go through the options here. And so you say, great, I want an ASP.NET solution. Let's say MVC, and great, down here, create remote resources. And so I can see here, right here, you've selected this, and you've selected virtual machine. I'm already signed in, so this is already going to my account. And I can deploy, and now I pick my options. And so here I want to do, let's see, Corey website. And here I have the option to directly deploy IaaS and web deploy. I'll use, like I said, I'll use SQL Server maybe as my solution. Pick my username. And then let's say West US. And oh, as simple as that, you get a failure. It'll work for you. All right. Well, let's go back to my solution then. Let's not save that one. OK, so imagine that worked, and your virtual machine is up and running, and you've deployed your solution to it. So here you can see I've got a build IaaS solution here. It's a website that I built. I'm going to go ahead and say publish this. OK, and so the publishing here, I've already selected this to be on a virtual machine. So the connection here, this actually goes to the web deploy that's been pre-deployed on that virtual machine. And I've got the password already configured. Actually, let me just quickly validate the connection. Great, it's connected. Settings, it's going to be debug mode, because I will actually want to go play with it a little bit. And let's go publish. And just like any web deploy solution, it's nearly instantaneous, running in my virtual machine. So you can see here, I have cloudapp.net running up here. So this is actually running in Microsoft Azure, and there's my solution. OK, and so let's say I want to make some changes to it. And so let me go in and say, OK, my about page is cooler than Jeffrey. Let's say something like this. OK. He's going to get me back for that later, I'm sure of it. All right, go in and publish it. And just like any sort of web deploy solution, directly in my virtual machine, I'm up and running within seconds and able to see the changes that I just deployed onto my website. OK, and there it is. So that's simple web deploy. The virtual machine came with the web deploy already pre-installed, so it makes it very easy to go play with that. But then, of course, the solution that we walked through a little bit today that I'll show you now on using IaaS is if you wanted to do debugging of that. So that solution is running on a virtual machine running here in my virtual machine tab now in Server Explorer. And so I can see here Corey build IaaS is the machine. And I will go ahead and hit Attach Debugger, as you saw this morning. And because this is IaaS, I actually want to go to W3WP and hit Attach. OK. And similarly, I'll go ahead and put a breakpoint at that About message there and go in. And in a similar way, hit the About, and immediately pulls me over to the Visual Studio Experience and shows me that breakpoint. And so similar to what you could do with the Windows applications that you may have saw this morning, you can actually do the same thing here with an IaaS solution directly using that remote debugging. It's really, really great, and it should make a lot of that development experience much, much easier. OK. Let me go back. OK. Very cool. So that's the Visual Studio and Infrastructure as a Service, and I will show you one more Visual Studio point later on. So the next step I wanted to talk about, extensions and configuration. So you saw a little bit this morning about extensions, and I want to just spend a minute to tell you a little bit about what we're doing here. We're really pretty strong believers in, at least for the virtual machine and Infrastructure as a Service solutions, making it possible for you to do what you want to do. Right? We're trying to make sure that you can deploy what you want to deploy and the way you want to deploy it with the solutions you're comfortable with. So that's where a lot of the Visual Studio integration comes in. Right? You can actually use the tooling that you're familiar with. But we also want to use additional and walk you through some additional examples of tooling that you may want to use and you may be comfortable with already. So the Visual Studio is one. And this directly deploys the Visual Studio binaries right into the virtual machine without you having to touch it. We also have two others. I'll show you later. The BG Info actually writes onto the background of your virtual machine so you can manage it. And then, of course, VM Access. And this one's kind of a silly one, but one that we've heard so much feedback on and so much excitement about that I thought I'd point it out explicitly. And this is the ability to change the password and the username for a VM that you've already deployed in the cloud. And this is one of the most common complaints that I've heard from people about infrastructure as a service is I forgot my password. It's one of the highest support calls as well. And so we now have the ability to use an extension. You can go in and through PowerShell directly change your password. And so pretty simple, pretty stupid, but actually extremely valuable. And so that is one big aspect of what we've offered through this extension story. It also will reconfigure RDP if you end up losing your RDP access as well. So it's something that's pretty powerful and pretty useful. Cool. And then the final point about extensions that we talked a little bit about this morning, and we're going to spend quite a bit more time here with Jeffrey, is the ability to deploy additional configuration solutions into your virtual machine. And so we've actually had some great partnerships, and you saw a lot this morning about Puppet Labs and the solutions that they offer. They actually have their own session as well, so that is a fantastic thing to go sort of learn about. It's a fantastic product. And I'll be spending a little bit more time on Chef and talking a little bit about sort of the Chef integration. But first, We're going to turn it over here to Jeffrey to spend some more time on PowerShell and PowerShell DSC and how that integrates directly into this new extension model. So Jeffrey, take it away.
Great. Hey, so first let me get a couple, some information from the audience. How many of you currently use PowerShell? Yeah, okay, great. How many of you know what the heck Katana, what the heck was that thing?
Cortana.
Cortana was. Okay, see, I win.
What?
Nobody knows what that
no,
thing
Settlers
is.
of Catan, he's saying. How many people know what Settlers of Catan is? Okay.
Still more PowerShell.
Okay, you win.
Okay, I had no idea what the heck that thing was.
It's not like I created Settlers of Catan. Okay.
All right, so it is an established fact that PowerShell transforms mild-mannered IT pros and developers into superheroes. And what I'm here to do today is to tell you about some new stuff that's going to make you superstars even more powerful and more agile. And that's the Windows Management Framework version 5 preview. Now, in the past, what we did was we invented this great management technology, and we would ship it in Windows, and then we would make it available down level through this thing called the Windows Management Framework. Now, what we're announcing is a change in approach to a more agile cloud cadence release mechanism. And so what we're going to do is we're going to innovate on management technology and make it available first through the Windows Management Framework, through these previews, and then it will go in Windows. So as soon as we have it, you're going to get it. So pretty exciting stuff. So there's 3 things that we announced today. We released it this morning, and there are 3 major components to it. So the first is PowerShell Network Switch Commandlets. In Windows Server 2012 R2, we, for the first time, established the logo program for network switches. That's right, so now when you go buy a network switch or top-of-rack switch, you want to make sure that it is certified for Windows. Because if it's certified for Windows, then you know that 1, System Center will be able to automatically manage it without additional software. And now 2, you have a set of PowerShell commandlets to go manage that switch. That's right, Windows, not PowerShell, doesn't manage just Windows, doesn't just manage the servers, it now manages the network switches as well. So you can do things like establish VLANs, disable network ports, etc. Very cool stuff. The next thing, what the heck was that? Okay, we'll go that way. The next is PowerShell OneGet. PowerShell OneGet is a package manager for Windows. It will find and install packages from repositories, and we've been working closely with the Chocolatey community to be able to get their repositories, and you'll see later on there'll be more repositories. So this is, again, an example of the new Microsoft, where we stopped, we looked around, saw what the community best practices were, and engage with the community to deliver a trusted solution from Microsoft. Here we have a picture of Rob Reynolds. He's the author of Chocolatey, and he's very excited about this effort, right? He called it a huge step forward, not just for the Chocolatey community, but for the entire ecosystem, and he's absolutely correct. Now, on this point, the entire range of IQs in the IT industry agree with this, and clearly we see that here.
Sorry, snuck it in.
Okay, so lastly, we have the PowerShell desired state configuration refresh. Okay, so we've got a number of performance optimizations and fixes, and a lot of new providers. Okay, so if you're not familiar with PowerShell desired state configuration, it is a tool agnostic configuration management platform. Okay, so it's a platform. So when you go and develop your resources make your resources configurable using PowerShell desired state configuration, then your customers will be able to choose whatever configuration management tool they want. Okay? And the great thing about this technology is it enables a modern DevOps workflow, a workflow of continuous deployment and environments where you avoid configuration drift. Okay?
What's happening with this?
I'm hitting the wrong button, obviously.
Do you need some help on the clicker here?
I'll handle it. So we've got this PowerShell desired state resource kit. We've been even more agile with that. So 1, we brought back the resource kit. Okay, so the resource kit is back. These are things that are in an experimental state. okay? That's why you see an X in front of them. The first wave of that came the day after Christmas. Did I tell you the PowerShell team is devoted to making sure you guys get the latest and greatest stuff? And we've been very aggressive in getting a lot of resources on this. Desired state configuration is really taken off. There's just a ton of interest in this, and it's one of those situations where you find a little fire and you pour gasoline on it. That is what we're doing with desired state configuration. We are pouring gasoline on this puppy. We're investing very heavily in this and going fast.
I'll just take over.
You
talk. You worry about the talking.
Okay, so there are 3 parts. Desired state configuration. Here's the big animal picture. Pretty simple story, okay? But it's important to understand. There are 3 components to the system. On the left are the Make It So engine. Okay, this is the stuff that actually does the configuration management. It is WMI and a set of WMI providers, okay? In the middle is a configuration document. Now this document is an ASCII text document. It's a standards-based document. So the DMTF standard that specifies how to say what a managed resource is and what state it should be in. And then the question is, well, how did I get that document? And the answer on the right is using tools. Now, because it's an ASCII text document, you can use any tool you want to. You can use Notepad, you can use Vim, you can use anything you want. However, PowerShell version 4, we added language features to make it easy to use. Additionally, you can use any of the configuration management tools out there that support DSC. And this is why it's a platform play and why it's so powerful. Click. Okay, so let's show you this.
I got you.
All right, so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you PowerShell version 4, the language extensions for creating a configuration. Notice the configuration keyword, and I'm going to configure the 4th coffee, okay? Here, I say I want it to on a particular node. I'm going to install the Windows feature, IaaS. I'm going to install ASP.NET. By the way, you notice the way that works is I say Windows feature, its name is ASP.NET, and I want it to be present, okay? Here, notice the default website, and what I say is its state should be stopped. So here, you can turn things on, you can turn things off. You define the state that you want the system to be in. And notice we're talking about the state you want it to be in, not how to get to that state. The system figures that out for you. Okay? Next, we have web file content, and here we're going to get a website from a particular place, and we're going to stage it. And then lastly, we're going to set up the website bakery site. And notice here, this depends on. What this depends on says is, hey, don't run this until the previous thing, the file, the web content, is in place. Okay? So in this way, you set up a dependency chain, and when you hand it to WMI, WMI looks at all those dependencies and execute things in parallel and has the appropriate sync points to make sure everything executes in sync. So how do we run this? Well, here, I .source that. That then defines a function, 4th coffee, and when I run it, notice it creates that MOF file. That's the standards-based document. Okay? Now, what I do is I start DSC configuration. I'm going to wait for the results and display them. I'm going to say verbose. And you see what it does is, for each of the resources, it looks and does features, IaaS. It does a test, sees that it's not there, so it starts it, etc. And goes through each one of the resources. So then the end result, the end result is this website, okay? So I got this server, this website's all configured, happy day, right? This is a good day. But good days are infrequent. They are good-looking cupcakes. So imagine you got one of those admins like me. You know, I like to joke, PowerShell is such an awesome language because I'm such a deeply flawed human. That's sort of not a joke. It's really true. I make mistakes all the time.
Yeah, I know that to be true.
I'm the clicker. For instance, the clicker, right? So if I was on this website, I would almost certainly do something like this, right? And delete all the images, right? and shortly after I was done with it, your website would look like this, okay? So typically, when something like this happens, what is the response? And the answer is drama. Oh my God. Well, desired state configuration gets rid of the drama. Things go wrong. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. So let's just go back here and say, now, by the way, by default, we would have gone and refreshed it every 15, 30 minutes, so it would have just taken care of itself. But given that I've noticed it, I'll go ahead and repair it myself. I'll say, hey, make things the way they should be. They're not the way they should be. Make them the way they should be. Notice, I'm not figuring out, oh, I deleted this, or I disabled that. I'm just saying, make it be the way it should be. And it does that. Notice, by the way, this word skip, right here, skip. So as we go and we do this evaluation of things, if things are already in the state that they're in, we skip the resolution. It's only when they're not in the state that we do a remediation action. And so now I'm able to go back here, and my customers are able to order their tasty cupcakes. Yum. Okay? So great stuff.
That's great.
But what does this have to do about Azure?
Show me how this works with Azure, Jeffrey.
Glad I cued you in there. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how this integrates with Azure. With Azure has this fantastic thing, the script extension. And as all you guys raised your hand with PowerShell know, with scripting, you can do anything. So what we're going to show is how we're able to use PowerShell and the PowerShell Windows Management Framework version 5 preview coupled with the Azure scripting to just make the situation be exactly the way you want it to be. So here is my configuration script. You'll notice it's almost identical to the one we showed before. So I've got my IaaS, I got my ASP.NET, I have my web content, I have my diagnostics, my default website, etc. However, it's not just about configuring window and configuring my website. Often there's a set of tools that I use when managing my website. And so what I'm going to use here is OneGet. And so I'm going to say, hey, I'd also like to have sysinternals be present. I'd like to have Zoomit be present. I'd like to have Vim be present. I'd like to have the Chrome browser to be present to test compatibility. Okay? So first let me show you how this OneGet stuff works. Okay? So here, OneGet is a package manager. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you all the commands in OneGet. So you see add package source, etc. And I'll say get package source. When I say get package source, notice that this will tell you all the repositories of software that you can get. And currently we have one. There'll be more in the future. It's the Chocolatey repository. And notice, now here I just want to be real straight with you. Notice the is trusted. It says false, right? We are not vouching for the software in that Chocolatey repository. It is a community repository. So it is, buyer beware, okay? Later you'll see more trusted repositories. But certainly you'll be able to set up your own repositories and put things that you know are valid in them. Okay? So that's something to make note of. Now then, what you can do is you can say, hey, that's great. Find me all the packages. Now here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to run find package, and I'm going to send it to outgrid. Okay? And so notice, there's over 1,700 packages in here. Lots of great stuff. And if I want to, I can find sysinternals, maybe not. There's stuff like, there's Perl. There's Cygwin. There's just a ton of great stuff in here, okay? So now, let's say I want to have Zoomit. I love Zoomit. You got to love Zoomit. Now notice, I can ask for all the versions. Which version? So if I know that there's a particular version that I know works, I can install that. But I'm just going to go ahead and install the latest one. It's as simple as saying install package Zoomit. Now notice, here it's warning you, saying, hey, this is coming from a source that you currently don't trust. Are you sure you want to install it? And we'll say, yep, I'm pretty sure about this one. And then, after it installs it, you'll be able to run get package and see all the things installed on this system. So, OneGet, really powerful stuff. So now, how do we take that configuration management and make it work? Okay, so there's two things. First is you get your configuration in state. Next is we're going to then go publish that configuration to Azure, and we're going to create a VM config. So here what we're going to do is we've got a script, and we're going to post that to the PowerShell team blog today. And what this script does is it takes a look at your configuration, and it finds all the dependencies, it packages it up, and it ships it to your storage account. So you'll set up a container, and you'll publish it there. So that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to set the VM config. Okay, so copying all that good stuff up. And then here, we're going to set up the JSON. So when you use the Azure script handler, there's a public and a private components, okay? So the private components are your storage credentials, okay? And the public basically says, hey, I'd like to download these files, my DSC boot and my configuration, and when I'm done, I'd like to run PowerShell in that boot. So here, we're going to run these. I didn't get the last. There you go. Thank you. There you go. I knew there was a reason. And then lastly, what we're going to do is we're going to set the VM extension. Okay? So here, we set the extension. Notice I'm giving the public and the private. So what this is doing is it's registering VM. And I'm going to show you I'm going to pull a Julia Childs on you here. I'm going to show you the end result, because it actually takes a while for this to start up. But what I'll end up with is, here this is running in Azure using that configuration. Notice here I've got Chrome, because I said, hey, I want to be able to do this for backward compatibility. I can check my local site. It's running just fine. I can go to PowerShell, I can say get package. Notice I have Chrome, sysinternals, Zoomit, and Vim. Happy days. And when I run task scheduler, I get the nice one. And when I control one, you can see Zoomit. Okay? So happy days. So with all of this, I was able to get the VM configured exactly the way I want it.
And you were able to launch all those using the custom script solution, right? So you can directly point it to an Azure storage account and it deploys.
Exactly correct. Okay.
All right.
All right. So why DSC on Azure?
Gotcha. I gotcha.
Oh, do you? What a deal. Okay, so first is PowerShell desired state configuration. Very powerful stuff. PowerShell OneGet and this VM script extension. Together, these things dramatically simplify the effort you have to get exactly the VM you want, or 10 or 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 VMs exactly the way you want them, and keep them the way you want them. Okay, so I got two call to actions. First, as developers, you want to make sure that you make your resources configurable via desired state configuration. This enables our customers to pick the configuration management tool of their choice. Second, if you're considering buying a configuration management tool, you'll want to make sure that they are supporting desired state configuration so that you're aligned with the Windows Server strategy. Otherwise, you'll end up on the island of misfit toys. Okay? So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Fantastic. All right. Some great stuff there. The ability to deploy those PowerShell scripts and be able to set up the machine just how you want it, all through a command to launch the virtual machine, is just fantastic. But I want to show you sort of an additional solution as well. And this is one that I mentioned earlier in the session. And this is the ability to actually deploy Chef directly on virtual machines in Microsoft Azure. Like I mentioned before, you just saw PowerShell DSC, and we covered Puppet this morning. But to spend some time on Chef, there's a few things really to talk about. Chef is a solution that really is a great IT automation platform. It allows you to deploy and manage your virtual machines and control that configuration drift that you may have on virtual machines running anywhere, not just in Microsoft Azure. But I'd probably recommend you just deploy Microsoft. No, and so it allows you to do that management across a very complex infrastructure and at massive scale. And sort of like Jeffrey mentioned about tens, hundreds, thousands of virtual machines, Chef allows you to manage that in a very easy and sort of a great experience, which I'll show you. And you can programmatically configure. So I'll show you a little bit of the Chef Knife tool that allows you to do a little bit more command line configuration and control. And the great thing is there are actually Azure-specific cookbooks available to you today that were built sort of in collaboration between the Chef team and the MS OpenTech team here at Microsoft. And so these cookbooks will allow you to do a lot of really interesting things. You can deploy SQL with them, et cetera. And so I do recommend you check them out and see sort of what power and solutions it may offer you. So without sort of going too much further on, I want to show you a quick demo of using Chef on Azure. And let me slide over here and kind of walk you through what this looks like. Great. So here I have a portal experience, and I've got a bunch of virtual machines deployed. What I want to start first with is actually show you a little bit of Knife and sort of the usage of Knife. Now, Knife ends up being a command line tool that allows you to both interface with Chef Server. It also allows you, with some of the solutions that the two teams have built together, it allows you to actually manage, deploy, manipulate virtual machines in Microsoft Azure. And so it can both manage the code that you upload and allow you to provision virtual machines directly. So just to kind of show you sort of what I mean here, just to kind of give you a quick look here, Knife-h shows you sort of the full list of different commands and solutions that you can run here using Knife. And so a lot of different options. It's all command lines, so you can do a whole bunch of scripting out, regex options, control your environments, sort of allowing this sort of massive scale manipulation and update and control. And so this will talk directly to the Chef server and manage it accordingly. So just to give you kind of one quick example, if I just do Knife client list, I can see the virtual machines that are running under this Chef server. And it'll list all these virtual machines. So here are the virtual machines running under this Chef server, and so I can sort of manipulate them and manage them accordingly. And so even if I wanted to, let's say, deploy a full virtual machine, there it is. You can actually deploy using Knife into Azure. And so Knife Azure, you can directly deploy a virtual machine that will then immediately pick up a cookbook that you've got set up and deploy it out. And so you can see here, I've configured this. It's going to deploy an OpenLogic Linux machine, picking the size, picking the cookbook. And so this will actually deploy a Minecraft server for me to use for playing Minecraft. It also comes with sort of the identity file to be able to tell me, hey, what's the authentication to be able to talk to it, and sort of including the endpoints. And so you can hit sort of enter, and you're able to go and deploy this virtual machine. So that's kind of the experience, the command line experience for Chef. It's great to be able to sort of manipulate and manage the virtual machines. But now let me show you a little bit of what you want to do once you've sort of got these machines up and running. And so the first thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to actually shift over to the Chef console. And so here I've got it up for the machines that are running. And so you can see here, this is the UI experience around sort of managing my virtual machines. And so this is also running as a server in Microsoft Azure. So you can see the cloudapp.net. And I can look at the nodes here of all the machines that are running. I can click around and sort of play around. And so here I see the role that I've deployed is the Minecraft demo. So I'll show you this here in a little bit. But this is sort of the way that I've managed some of these machines and manipulated them directly through this UI. And so to actually deploy, the nice thing that we've done here, similar to what you saw this morning, is directly through the portal, you can actually deploy a virtual machine that then will be able to go talk and effectively phone home to the Chef server and be able to pick up the configuration and configure the virtual machine accordingly. And so here, I'll go ahead and pick a name here. Let's see here. Oops. OK. OK. And I'll go ahead and I'll leave it as a small for now. OK. And click through. OK, I'll keep all these defaults. No reason to really change these. And so here, you'll see the two options that just became available today. So I'll actually click on the Chef option. And so now it's got a few things that I need to put in. One is sort of the client RB file. And so what I've already pulled up here, this ends up being sort of the configuration file to go manage when this guy goes down and the agent wakes up, what he's supposed to do, right? And so this ends up passing in the Chef server URI, and so you can go in and immediately connect. And so as you see, it's the same server that I was just on before. So this is going to wake up, and it's going to phone home and figure out what it's supposed to do, okay? And so this, you can have additional options in here as well. And so we'll go ahead and pull that up and make that the solution here. Then it also needs a PEM file, right? And this security file. And so for this, I will go ahead and pick the validator one here. And so this is the security file. And now the run list. So this is sort of the thing that I'm telling it to go execute, right? And so this will immediately pick that up and execute on that Chef server and be able to start running immediately. And so here you saw what I showed you in the Chef UI. It was called mcdemo_wrapper, okay? And so from there, hit OK, and the VM's off. And so this guy will wake up. The Chef agent will get put into the box using our extension model, right? Very thin, just drops it in and runs it. And so the Chef agent wakes up, phones home, talks back to that Chef server, and it'll pop into that Chef server and show up and say, great, now I'm going to be running Minecraft. And so just to kind of show you one that we've created a little bit earlier, this is what the actual box would come up looking like. And so you can see in the upper right here, this is actually the background info that I mentioned before. You can see sort of all the information here that you've got. And so this is the demo client that maybe I spun up maybe about 10 minutes ago, 10 minutes earlier. And so this comes up, and it's already got the Minecraft solution written right there. And so with that, Chef came in and set this all up, configured it, installed the necessary things like the Java toolset that was required to run Minecraft, brought the actual Minecraft solution down, and made it so that I could quickly go in here and directly launch Minecraft from this client, talking to the server that I had already set up. And so here I could immediately launch this and play the demo. OK. All right. Excellent. Very good. OK. So that is the extensions and configuration aspect. The final part of the show today that I wanted to talk you through is VM images and gallery. And so I'll start mostly focusing on VM images and then probably close on some gallery content. So for VM images, if you're familiar with what we've had so far in Microsoft Azure, we've ended up originally starting with this just an OS image, right? So prior to today, if you wanted to go create an image, it was only the OS disk. You could not keep track of data disks attached to it, right? And so this ended up actually making it relatively less valuable to be able to deploy it. The new solution with VM images is it captures all disks attached. So whether your disks are your data and log file, let's say, for a Windows or a SQL box, or multiple colored disks for a Linux box, whatever it may be that you want to capture as part of this VM image, you can now capture with a single command. The one key thing I will say, it is best effort disk consistency. So there is no sort of freeze of reads and writes. We do allow you, and in fact, the demo I'll show you, we do allow you to capture a VM in a running state. So this is also different. Currently, the way that you capture a VM, you have to shut it down. You actually have to sysprep it for Windows. If the new solution, you actually don't need to sysprep it. You don't even need to shut it down. We would recommend you shut it down, but you don't. It's not required. And so sysprep's no longer also required. So it makes it very easy for you to come in and take these virtual machines, take a quick snapshot, and then just deploy as many of these machines as you may want all over your environment. OK. Let me quickly show you what that looks like. OK, so what I have here is I actually have a virtual machine running right now. And so here's my virtual machine. It's a SQL VM. OK, and so let me scroll down here and show you. It's got a whole bunch of disks attached, right? And fairly large disks. In fact, let me log on here to the virtual machine. And so here you see the virtual machine. It is running SQL Server. Oops. Pull this up. And actually, you can see from the background info, I've actually got a 5 terabyte drive and a 3 terabyte drive. Now, these do require multiple drives, and so I'm actually using some solutions here on server to be able to span across the disks. And so here I've got SQL data, and I've got my data for the SQL Server, and I also have the log file. Excuse me. And so the log file, and so that's 3 terabytes, and the data one is 5 terabytes. So lots of disks. Would be real pain for me to go recreate these, copy the disks over, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. OK, so let me go back to PowerShell. And so here's what we've got in PowerShell. So you see here I call out the service name and the SQL VM, and then I just give it an image name, right? The key thing here that you didn't see this morning was this, which is the OS state, and this says whether it's specialized or generalized. Now, the key difference here, if it's generalized, it means you can re-provision it with username, password, all those goodies, and it'll spin up a new VM that ends up being, again, specialized for whatever the purposes you may want. In this case, you can't configure the username password. It's going to be an exact duplicate of the one that you're running right now. I'm going to use specialized because it's a little bit more fun for a demo, but you can actually go either way. And so let me actually capture this, and let me just make it into just for now. And so you can see here, I hit capture. This is in the background. It's actually taking those 8 or 9 disks, I think, that I had and making copies of them and making sure that we store them off as a copy somewhere in my account so that I can recreate images from it. And so as it's doing this, the virtual machine continues to run. And so when we actually spin this up, you will see the warning of, oh, it looks like you didn't shut down cleanly. That's because we're doing it while running. And so let's see here. This should take just a matter of seconds, and you've ended up copying all those disks aside, and your VM was never shut down. And so there you go. So now I have this snapshot. I have this captured VM image that now I can go recreate VMs from. It's nearly instantaneous because it's actually running in Windows Azure Storage. And so the storage copies are nearly instantaneous because they're all in the same region. And so that's one of the really powerful things of storage that we continue to take advantage of. So I've already made this copy, again, very, very fast. And so what I'll end up doing here is I'll take this and I'll take that, make sure I got the right one here. Take that, I'm going to deploy a new one. So let's say backup copy. OK. Backup copy. Let's make sure that OK, and let's try and run this. Oh, ask me for my credentials. Good, very important. OK, that was easy. OK, and so this is going to go deploy this virtual machine and spin it up based on that image that I just captured. While this is running, there's one fun thing that I want to show you. And this is something that we have not yet released. And so it's something that will be coming here. Sorry, I can't remember my password. Isn't that amazing? There, I got it. I almost said it out loud, too. Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey. I almost said it out loud. I was so excited, and then you all are hacking my account. OK, so what I'm going to show you right here, this has not been released. This is actually, the Visual Studio team has built this for me for this demo. And this is actually not even code checked into the Visual Studio tree. So just to give you a good idea of the failure before you saw was unacceptable. But failures now are more acceptable. OK. So here, what we'll see here, I've got, actually, let me do this so I can use this fun zoom it. What you see here is I now have a new option here. And so I can actually do snapshot directly through the Visual Studio UI. And so I'll be able to say snapshot, give it the name. So it picks a name for me. Cool. Let's actually add a 4 to it just in case. OK. And so that'll take a snapshot. Again, it should take about as long as the previous snapshot that you saw. And then directly from here, now I can go in and I can go create a virtual machine. And so from this, I've got basically the option to go in and say snapshot images. This will actually be called VM images by the time it actually goes out, because we will call it VM images. And so you can see here I've got the snapshots or the VM images I've created, and the date will be put in here as part of this. And so I can go in and say, great, I've already got this. It looks like it was already done. I can go in and immediately create a virtual machine from it. And so this will launch that virtual machine. It'll allow me to do all this snapshot and deploy in Visual Studio. And so the power of this, just to sort of let that sink in, the power of this will allow you to go make all those edits, all those changes, all those mess ups that you want to in the virtual machine you got running in the cloud. And you'll be able to take that snapshot and go back in time and say, whoa, I screwed up my website. I don't remember what happened. Let me go back to the website yesterday at noon. And so the ability to be able to take these views and be able to redeploy them and so on, it's just going to be really, really powerful. And so I apologize that this isn't available today. It is coming. The Visual Studio guy is right over there, so you want to go get the timeline from him. Summer is what I'm saying, yes? It's coming this summer. OK. OK, cool. So actually, while that's going on, let's come back here and see the state of my virtual machine. OK, so here's the portal. Let me hit F5 here and see where we are with the deployment. And so the nice thing is that this is not doing a full provision of the virtual machine. It's actually just rebooting it because it's not a generalized image. And so here's backup copy. OK. Looks like it's already up and running. So we'll go ahead and connect to it. See if I can remember my password. OK. Here we go. And so what we'll see here, let's try it again. I'll only try twice. OK, well, looks like maybe it doesn't want to actually connect right now. So what we would normally see here is we'd be able to connect into that virtual machine, and you'd be able to see those same disks attached, and be able to see that SQL Server that was running there, and be able to mess with them and update them, and take a look and make sure that your backup was in a good place. So, all right, I lied. I'm going to try one more time. OK. All right. Well, let me go back here. OK. So that's the sort of the VM solution and the VM images solution. As a very last step, I kind of wanted to spend some time just talking a little bit about sort of what we're doing here and the direction that we're going. So what we showed you today was this, the ability to have this new VM agent and be able to have it deploy out into a lot of different solutions. So we talked a lot about the Visual Studio solution and the ability to extend inside that environment and deploy Visual Studio solutions, web deploy, debugging, et cetera, all through Visual Studio, which all plugs through the VM agent. We showed you PowerShell and PowerShell DSC to be able to deploy a PowerShell solution, grabbing from the storage account, dropping it into the virtual machine, and managing it from there, all again plugging in through this VM agent. We also I showed you Chef today, being able to do that same solution through that VM agent, and you saw Puppet this morning using that same solution. We're going to continue to add to this capability and add to the ability to use this VM agent for these reasons. The nice thing about this, it does also give you some of those management options. I showed you resetting the password. I showed you the ability to reset RDP. And all of that, again, is through this VM agent. And the nice thing about the auto-update nature of this is that when, for example, Chef's got an update or Puppet's got an update, it will automatically update that solution on those boxes if they so choose, right? And then it will be up to those sort of partners to decide how they want to do that update mechanism. But with all this power, you're probably saying to yourself, well, gosh, that's going to be kind of obnoxious to have this thing running on my virtual machines. Well, it's not. It's actually a really, really small agent. Its entire job is almost exclusively to drop these other guys in and sort of give the power to these other solutions that you're already using. And so it makes it really, really tiny and small. You can actually see it here taking 0% of my CPU. And it is actually the Windows Azure Guest Agent. So this is, again, the same binary that we've deployed on cloud services is now deployed on infrastructure as a service. So it ends up giving that same power, and you can sort of see the same direction of solution there. It always leads me to this last question, which is it PaaS or is it IaaS? This is kind of a good question, right? As I started saying, we brought the PaaS agent onto IaaS. We brought all the PaaS configuration solutions. We make it really easy to manage a virtual machine in the same way that maybe you'd say PaaS does. My answer to this is always, who cares? I think the goal here is we're trying to make sure Azure can help you do your job, right? And so if we're trying to make sure virtual machines and infrastructure as a service is there to help you do your job, fantastic, right? But hey, maybe you actually want to go up the stack, and that's also fantastic too, right? We're here to just make sure that we're getting your job done, getting your app ready, and solving problems for you. And we think the agent's going to help there. We think the solutions we've walked through today are going to make that much easier to land. But again, all the solutions across the entire Azure platform should aggregate to make a much greater cloud and application solution for you. And so, as we talked about today, helping you get your job done, more development integration, more options and integration, easier to scale, simple usability, and the highest value around. And so the goal is to make this really, really easy and really great for you to use. And without spending too much more time on it, I think I found my quote here. So much fun, even the cool kids will want to use the cloud. So hopefully you enjoyed the session. We will stick around here if you've got any additional questions. In fact, actually, we have time maybe for 1 or 2 questions right now if you want to come up to the mic, if anyone's got any questions.
With the enhanced imaging stuff that you just talked about, do you yet have the ability that I can make one of these images, make it public, direct my customers to go deploy that into their own accounts?
Yeah, great question. So the enhanced imaging today does not enable that, but that is the direction we're going. So you will be able to sort of share those out in the future and make them available to both your customers and your fellow developers. Yep.
Any chance you have a time frame?
Not yet, but yeah, soon I will have a time frame. Yeah, and then we'll have maybe one more question here, or 2 more maybe if there's 1 more. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so with the DSC stuff, do you have to also create chef cookbooks and whatever Puppet have, as well as DSC to take advantage of all this configuration? Or can I just create a DSC file and have Chef and Puppet and anybody else do the work? What's the lowest level?
Yes, so DSC is the platform component, but as I mentioned, you can create these configuration documents any way you want. PowerShell does do that, but it's a relatively simple experience. You'll see that the chefs and the puppets, tools like that, provide much richer set of things. Reporting capabilities, logging, who did what when, etc. So you kind of want to think about it as we're redoing the Perfmon model, right? Perfmon was an inbox tool that provided a great solution for a limited set of things, but it caused everyone to write performance counters. So in the same way, and then a huge performance management industry was built on those performance counters. You'll see the same sort of thing. So depending upon what you need, maybe Perfmon's enough for you. But for other people, typically they say, no, I want to buy a System Center or an HP, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm just hoping to be able to just use DSC and everything else was taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that the goal?
Well, the goal is to create that ecosystem with the broadest range of. So basically, it stems from the position that we believe that if we make managing the components of Windows simple, then a rich ecosystem will flourish up above. Look, these guys don't want to come to you and say, "Hey, buy my product because I can manage IaaS and I can configure IaaS," and they can't, because it's either useless or it's useful. If it's useful, the other guy's going to manage it immediately. So they want to compete on the higher level functionality, workflows and graphs and things like that. And so what we want to do is we want to say, hey, all that minutia, you can free your developers up from that struggle by making the platform do it for you.
Thanks.
And I will quickly, just because I had to, the machine did come up. I was able to connect. That was the AHA demo and AHA. That's it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed it.